So today I'm in the field with Professor Cathy Clarke from Stellenbosch University, and she's a soil scientist, and something that I know barely anything about, but I've been learning a lot about in my field trips with Cathy, and it's just fascinating the stuff that she picks up in terms of what's going on under the ground. And what we've done today is we've excavated a pit underneath a beautiful spekboom clump, and we're going to go around the corner here to another pit that's in the open, and we'll have a chat about that in a moment. So Cathy, take it away. What have you found in this in the soil here?
Thanks, Alistair. So so the main sort of take-home picture of this soil, it's got a very thin-ish little layer for spekboom, which we've seen thicker ones. But you'll see that the soil is quite soft, easy. It's got a nice bit of structure. And I think one of the most noticeable things here is you can see how the soil changes color. It's sort of dark here, then it goes this sort of orangey brown color. And then you start to get into this pale material, and you might be able to see little flecks, white flecks there. So that is calcium carbonate. It is the material that limestone is made out of, and it's giving this pale color to the soil, and you can see the soil gets harder and harder. Okay, you see we actually call it hard pan carbonate, and there we actually hit the shale, so the carbonates have accumulated on top of this.
So that's the bedrock
shale
down there, huh?
Yeah, so that's the bedrock. There's no carbonates in this profile right the way down, but we start to hit it here at about, let's say, 40 centimeters. So let's go and contrast that to what we get outside of the spekboom.
Cool. So we're not going to that pit, we're going to go to this pit over here. So not very far away, 10 meters away. It'll be easiest. The sun's on that side there. Which side do you want to talk about?
Yeah. Okay, so this pit now, we're what, about 7 meters away from where we were, and in this pit here you can see that we don't have that nice dark topsoil, right? We're straight into this sort of orangey. Should never do soil science with sunglasses on. You can't see the soil color, so it's sort of a reddish brown material. You can still see the structural units, but then you'll see we're onto this calcium carbonate, and we're at 30 centimeters. So what we think has happened is that we've lost between 10 and 15 centimeters of topsoil here. So it means that we're actually intersecting this calcium carbonate layer at a much shallower depth than we were in the spekboom. And I mean, these two soils, from an environmental point of view, are almost identical. So we assume this has been eroded off. And from a carbon point of view, as you move down a soil profile, you're going to get less carbon. It normally drops off exponentially. So if we're already in the subsoil here, we're going to be have a much lower carbon than we would for a topsoil under a spekboom clump.
I know actually from over here, I don't know if you can see, but there's a raised mound that we were on that spekboom clump there, and you can actually see how much topsoil has been lost there. There it raises up, and then it's probably up to, and then goes down again. So we've lost a hell of a lot of soil off this landscape. This used to be intact and dense thicket, and animals and overbrowsing by domestic livestock have come through and thinned it out. So we were at that pit over there that's in the open, and Cathy's just zoomed over there to the next open pit and is just setting up to show us interesting things. Okay.
Yeah, so Alistair, what you can see here is the excavator managed to get a little bit deeper. So now you can clearly see this calcium carbonate layer, and it's again, we're outside of the thicket, so we think this is sort of, rather than the A horizon has been lost, so we're already into the B horizon, and this carbonate horizon is outcropping here at 30 centimeters. So it'll be interesting to go and compare that then to another adjacent profile under a thicket to see where the carbonate horizon outcrops.
And thankfully we do have a adjacent one just over there, so we'll go and have a look at that. So, Kathy, while we're shifting across, A horizon, B horizon, what's the major difference?
So a horizon is a mineral soil that contains organic material. So it's usually a little bit darker, can have sort of, it's less dense, often has less clay in it because the clay moves down. A B horizon is a horizon where a lot of the material that was in the A accumulates, so it often has a bit more clay. It often has a bit more structure, so those little packets of soil that you see, and it has less organic material, obviously.
Would you say in terms of biological activity, the A horizon is way, way higher biological activity?
Absolutely, and of course, that's where our roots love to live, because the organic matter, it serves many functions in a soil. It provides nutrients to the plants. It also increases the water holding capacity of the soil. So if you're a root, you want to go where the food and the water is. So most roots will accumulate in that A horizon. You obviously get some roots that will go down looking for water, so they will penetrate the B horizon. But in terms of a biological layer, where the action is, it's definitely in the A horizon. So the last thing on earth you ever want to do is lose your A horizon. It's very hard to build up the levels of carbon that you get in A horizons. It's not something that happens overnight. It takes many years.
Oh, well, you keep on pointing to this bush clump in A horizon, so let's have a look what's going on here.
Okay, so here, whoopsie. Here, you see the litter layer is also a bit thicker. I'm just going to put my tape there. Normally we put the tape at the start of the mineral horizon, right? So it should be just as where the litter and the soil meet. All right, so firstly, let's just look at this litter layer. So we get this coarse, call it cornflake type material, coarse spekboom leaves. As we go further down, right, it gets darker. Darker in organic matter means that it's starting to break down. It's starting to become humified, and that's why it gives soils that dark, A horizons, that dark look, so it's becoming humified. Okay, and then you're onto the mineral layer here, and so if we just take some soil samples, I don't know, what do you need? Let me just put this here. I just want to show, it's quite nice to show the difference in colour that you get. All right, so there's
the one patch.
There's another patch. Okay, and then it's not showing so nicely here, but so that's sort of a part of the A, that's another part of the A, and then you're into this B horizon here.
Well, you can really, you struggle to differentiate the A because it's on the A.
It's on an A, yeah.
So you can really see the A. So even though that was like 10 centimeters down, and
20 centimeters, 10 to 20, and then this is in the B horizon. So you can really see the contribution of the darkening of the...
And also how compact that is versus the A horizon. That's very...
And if you look at my hammer, as I go down, hammer's how soil scientists feel the soil. You can see it starts to, it's still quite loose, and then I'm into this.
Yeah, you can really smack to get anything.
Yeah, so that's thick. It's mainly because of the clay. The aggregates are very hard. But you can also see where the roots are happy. They really are occupying this area here. And there's also lots of very fine roots in this litter layer. Do you see them? So they're going for the nutrients and the water. We've actually sampled here already, so you can. So those roots would have been living in the litter layer.
Roots growing up rather than down.
Yeah.
Up into the litter layer.
Yes. Okay, but let's look for that carbonate layer. So here it's very deep. You can see I'm getting into it there. It's actually clearer on this side, Al, if you just pan
Oh,
around.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
See, it might be in the shadow there a little bit, but you
Yeah.
can see the...
So you'll see there it's cropping out. And about 60, yeah, call it 70 centimeters. So now let's go and see how it fares in a nearby profile.
That one we just came from earlier. So the assumption is that these carbonate layers should be fairly uniform underneath the landscape, given the processes.
So they should be at a sort of a uniform depth, given how close we are.
Yeah.
All right, we are not more than sort of 5 meters from that last profile. Okay, and look at it cropping out there at not even 30 centimeters. So that means you've lost
potentially 30 centimeters.
Potentially 30 centimeters.
And
you're in that beer eye that we showed you, right?
Yeah.
That hard, compact. Now the poor plants have got to grow in that with very little water holding capacity, low availability of nutrients. Completely different ball game.
Which is also just going to affect productivity.
Absolutely.
These bush clumps with lots of air horizon and nutrients and water can really be, like, it's a good environment for a plant to live in. These poor things living in this soil.
Yeah.
So we've lost the topsoil and productivity has gone down, which is a universal a universal issue across the planet, is the loss of topsoil.
Yes, absolutely.
And what's interesting, when you walk in this environment as an ecologist, it takes quite a while for you to realize that this is a very degraded state. It takes years of experience to work this out. And so, a lot of this loss is hidden.
Yeah.
Where there are huge dongas, and we've got you can see that the erosion has completely scoured the landscape. We go, oh, there's been soil loss. Here, there aren't dongas.
No, and it's, to an unaccustomed eye, or, this doesn't look that bad. There's vegetation everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't say that we'd lost 20 or 30 centimeters of soil. And this slope isn't all that, this isn't a steep slope. This is a very, very gentle slope.
So the other thing I want to also show you while we're here is the soil crust. You see this crust that forms here? You see there? So that forms this, it's not very hard if we break it, but that means that water can't infiltrate and it rather runs off. So it's these thin crust layers here.
What does the carbon in that A layer mean for water holding capacity of the soil?
Carbon can absorb and hold a lot more water. It also reduces the bulk density of the soil. So it gives you the right ratio of fine, medium, and coarse pores. Because some water, like the water in this clay layer, it's held so tightly that the plant can't suck it up. It's like if you're trying to sip a Coke with a very, very, very thin straw, you've got to work really hard. So these plants are having to work really hard to pull up the water because the pores are so fine. Or
a chocolate milkshake that's super thick.
Right.
Versus a Coke.
Yeah, it's the size of that straw.
Yeah. Or the thickness of the density of the substrate, is in my analogy.
Yeah, but I think it's better to use the size of a straw because these clay soils have a very fine pore structure. So it's analogous to a very thin straw.
Okay.
Whereas in there, they've got a mixture of pore spaces. Fine, medium, and coarse. I like that. So they've got the super big straws, the normal straws, and the thin straws. So for them, sucking up water is no problem. Means they also don't have to create such a high potential in their stems to suck it out of the water. Suck it out of the soil.
Yeah. Sure. Fascinating. And then, I mean, you showed the soil crust over here. Was there a soil crust underneath the
No, not at all. Not at all.
So, water lands on it and automatically...
And it soaks in. It's like a sponge. Whereas here, it will just run off and it'll cause all this erosion that you see.
So what's happened is we've lost that A layer, which I think is very so the spekboom and having intact thicket is what protected that A layer. And if we, because it got lost, it would be highly erodible. What's the correct word?
Yeah, erodible. Yeah.
So it's highly erodible. So that's all been lost very quickly. That's probably why we lost it 20 to 30 centimeters so quickly, because that A layer wasn't like this layer, which is very.
Yes.
I'd imagine that maybe this is quite difficult to erode in comparison to the A layer.
No, not necessarily, because the roots, there's the density of the roots in the A horizon prevent erosion.
But if you've lost
if you've lost the plants, there's nothing holding the A horizon, and so yes, it can erode quite quickly. And especially when you get this contrast in texture. So this is a very clayey subsoil. The A horizon didn't have as much clay. So what happens is, if you get very rapid and you don't have any roots to hold your system, the water comes through and it hits this, which is harder for the water to get through. And so it then flows laterally down the landscape.
It's like a dam, it dams up and then just kind of...
down and out, yeah.
And washes,
Yeah, so some soils are highly susceptible to erosion because they've got sand in the A horizon and clay in the B horizon. And if you've lost your roots, that water washes that lighter textured A horizon away.
Phenomenal. And terrifying to look at this landscape with that lens, with that kind of soil lens in mind.
So we don't know enough about the chemistry of these soils, which is why we're here. So that would also give us indicators of how erodible it is.
So if there's high salt content and things like that.
High sodium content, yes. So ratio of sodium to other cat ions. So that will have to be your next chapter.
Nice. Alrighty. Well, thanks. I hope that was interesting. Leave you with some money shots. In fact, so there we've got intact thicket. Beautiful intact thicket. High spekboom. There's a fence line running down there and some degraded thicket on the left-hand side. Let me see if I can actually get some zoom going on there. So there I'm zooming in. And you can see the beautiful intact thicket and the degraded thicket. And so we're currently standing in something that looks a little bit like that, but not on such a steep slope. Alrighty, signing off.